Yo, welcome back to the channel, boys and girls. In today's video, I'm going to take you guys along on one of my favorite weekly group rides here in Chicago. So I'm going to show you guys on some of the places on where we ride, some of the segments, and just give you guys a little bit of a taste on what it's like to ride with some of these race groups here in Chicago. So let's get active. All right, so before we get started, I just wanted to give a quick shout out to my clubmate Dean, who just became the 2021 USA Masters Cup National Champion for the Masters 60 plus category. But don't let his age fool you. Dean is one of the smoothest cyclists you'll ever meet, and this dude drops everyone almost every single week. He's a huge contributor to the team, both on and off the bike. So that championship jersey that I just showed you, he gets to wear that all next season, and it's well deserved. So kudos to him. So what is WNR? Well, if you've been following me on my Strava, but you aren't from Chicago, you may have wondered what that term means, WNR. Well, basically it just means Wednesday night run or Wednesday night ride, but it's a weekly group ride here on the north side of Chicago. A variety of clubs and bike shops organize these group rides, with each one providing a different degree of difficulty and fitness required. And afterwards, all the groups come together to socialize with beer and pizza at the local 7-Eleven. And honestly, it's probably one of the best cycling experiences, if not the best, within the Chicago city limits. But what made this week's group ride truly special was because all the groups combined together for one massive group ride. It was mayhem. Bro, we had like over 70 riders. Can you imagine that? 70 riders for this insane group ride. It might as well have been a road race. So with this group ride, the premise is simple. It's a fast group ride with several sprint points and long segments where you'll see people go on the attack, breakaways happen, and folks getting popped out the back of the group. So if you get dropped, you either have to find a shortcut to catch back onto the main group, or just find your way back home or to the 7-Eleven. Chicago in general is flat. However, there are some small pinches and false flats on the north end of the route. And that's usually where I'm able to move up wheels, being that I'm only 160 pounds, 73 kilograms. Now, within this group ride, there are several teams that are represented, consisting of Cat 5 folks like myself, all the way up to Cat 1 level racers. And I'm talking about Cat 1 teams here local to Chicago who compete with the likes of Legion and Butcher Blocks, which is pretty cool. So some of the teams represented in this ride is we have my team, which is the XXX Athletico. You have Johnny Sprockets, you have Gotham Greens, which is a Cat 1 team. You have Half Acre, you have Wellfit Triathlon, you have Bad Bikes, Super Dope Squad, and you have 1027. So when I first started joining this group ride earlier this summer, I gotta be honest, I was hanging on by a thread. It was such a struggle. My heart rate was through the roof. I felt like I was gonna blow up at any given second. But there's so much rubber banding in the back of the group that it just became a chore. So I eventually found my way mid-pack, or sort of the front of the mid-pack. And what new people like myself had to figure out really quickly is you need to learn the route and the sprint segments, and you really need to find your position within the pack, because you don't want to find yourself near the front of, say, 70 people having to take a pull soon, only to find out that you don't have the fitness to pull at the prescribed speed, which means you either drop yourself out of the group altogether, or you simply endanger everyone else around you. Crappy line, man. And as you guys just saw, and my teammate pointed out, I took a really bad line, which meant I had to do almost 900 watts to close that gap. So this is where the ride really gets spicy, because this is one of the longest, if not the longest section of the entire route without traffic lights. Locals will refer to this section as the Walters to Carmax segment. And so after a small but fast uphill, we have that crazy right-hand turn that you just saw, followed by another right-hand turn that leads to a false flat. And then it finishes with a series of a few more 90-degree turns. And as you guys can see, the field is super stretched out, and so it's extremely critical to take good lines through these corners and be efficient behind wheels. Otherwise, you'll easily find yourself dropped out the back of the group. And believe me, I know that, because earlier on in the summer, that was always me. I do want to acknowledge the fact that this video is pretty long for being just a group ride video rather than a full-on race day breakdown. However, I didn't want to just upload some janky GoPro footage with a couple of power and speed metrics. I wanted to really show you guys and give you a deep dive breakdown and sort of an immersion on what it's like to be a part of this sort of North Side Chicagoland culture. And despite the fact that we have several teams here that are all riding together and everyone competes together in their respective category of crit racing, everyone here gets along very well and everyone is friends. They probably have ridden together on teams in the past. And so if you are a new cyclist, this is a great way to kind of see where your fitness is. You'll learn how to ride efficiently in a pace line. You'll learn how to corner, how to efficiently use your energy for certain segments, and just overall learning how to safely be in a group when you're going at such fast speeds such as these. All right, so fast forwarding here, just look at how many people there are here. You can really tell that there are at least 70 people here. It was just absolute insanity, but just so much fun and just so awesome. So this part of the section is what I call the CarMax Sprint. I mentioned it earlier here. And at this point in the ride, we are heading south and we have this massive tailwind behind us. It was probably like 12 or 13 miles an hour. And so on this sprint, it's pretty long. I'm not going to show you the whole entire thing, but this is a place where people really start to go full gas towards the end of the segment. You will see some lead out trains, but people will normally save that for the final sprint of the group ride here. And so it's just this long stretch heading south where people start to ramp up. And so as that turn you just saw, if you are out of position or if you're near the back, like where I used to be when I first started coming to these rides, it's going to be really difficult for you to catch up and try to catch on wheels because there's just so much rubber banding. In fact, this is probably one of the sections that it really rubber bands a lot because it's such a long stretch that if you aren't at least mid-pack or towards the front, that it's just going to be hard for you and you're not going to be able to catch back on to the group. But thankfully at the end of the segment, this is one of the only maybe one or two sort of neutral areas of the whole entire group ride where you'll have a couple seconds to catch back on. But as you guys can see, I mean, we're going 32 miles an hour here and I'm not doing too much watts, so you can tell just how much force there is when you have a really good draft and a tailwind. But if you're at the back, it's going to make your life that much more difficult. So this is one of my favorite sections here, but I normally don't sprint because you have to have some super duper sprint legs to get anywhere near the calm for this. I think the calm is like 42, 43 miles an hour. It's something insane. And so I'm never going to be able to do that, but it is fun to catch a draft and, you know, try to hit my PR every single week. Moving forward here, now we're sort of in this sort of neutral zone slash regrouping section of the ride because we're going to be approaching what we call the Skokie Lagoons. And so as you just saw, you'll see people who start to reposition themselves in the group, especially if you don't want to be taking pulls at the front or if you're chasing a PR or chasing a comm, you know that you don't want to be at the front of the group. And so you'll see people kind of do stuff like that. You saw that person just previously slow down just because they didn't want to be at the front. And so now this is what we call the Skokie Lagoons section. Again, another fast section of the course here. Right now, I'm currently in what is about a 10-man breakaway. So out of the 70 people, I don't know why I'm near the front, but I am. And so during this breakaway, we decided, all 10 of us or so, that's one of my teammates here, right here on the left. Awesome guy. He's been a big sort of coach and mentor for me for cycling. But we started to take turns at the front, pulling almost in this sort of echelon style. So it was really cool for me to be at the front. This is probably one or maybe two times ever of this group ride that I've ever actually been at the front taking pulls. So it was cool to kind of see what it's like to be in this sort of 10, 11 man breakaway. But then in the end, we actually ended up getting caught right before the next sprinting section here. But it was fun while it lasted. The guy in front of me right now, he's from teams Bad Bikes. Super strong guy. I think he's a Cat 3 right now. He's gonna probably be a Cat 2 sometime very soon. Wicked guy. If you ever meet him in person, buy him a beer. So the next notable section on the route is what we call the Highland Park Rollers, or HP Rollers. And it's a series of small hills, sort of rolling hills, and it is a favorite place for cyclists to attack and form breakaways in the group. And as you guys just saw, you've seen that gentleman go to attack on the left side or oncoming traffic side of the road. And generally speaking, this isn't really a good idea. Now, I'm still new to cycling. I'm not the cycling police, but when it comes to moving up and attacking, you kind of have to do that ahead of time. And so what I've learned from my own teammates, which you actually heard my teammates scream at the guy to hold his line, aka stay within the yellow line, because number one is if this was an actual sanctioned road race, you would automatically be disqualified and they would pull you out of the race, or they would note you down to make sure that you know you're disqualified at the end of the race after you've already completed the race. But what I've learned from my teammates is if you are trying to move up, you do need to kind of plan that out ahead of time before you make your attack. Some of the places you should not be trying to move up is at a red light when everyone has stopped, because that's just being a jerk. And the other place is mentioned here, which is on the outside of that yellow line. So you kind of have to think about that going ahead. The guy who did that, the gentleman, he's actually a personal friend of mine, so I know him really well. He's super cool, super strong guy. And I get what he was trying to do, but just for new people out there, it's not a good idea from a safety standpoint. There could be a car coming in the opposite direction. Plus, it just makes the overall group look really bad on oncomers looking onto us sort of breezing by at 34 miles an hour.
What's up, Malik? What's up, bro? Looking good, bro. Off on the gram. You want to get in? Get in, bro. I just want to see that kid. Man, get in.
Alrighty, moving right along here. There aren't too many notable sections left on this group ride here. This particular one right here, we are heading south down Green Bay Road. And this is a really popular place for people to start to really put down the hammer and take turns pulling at the front. Now, I've learned the hard way that I don't have the fitness at this current moment to be able to pull at the prescribed speed at the front. So that's why you see me having people who just took a turn coming right in front of me here. I didn't want to be at any point where I would get too gassed at the front that I would drop myself out of the race, especially because at the end of this very long segment is a sprinting point here. So I'm just setting up my position here so I can kind of stay mid-pack, almost towards the front, but I definitely didn't want to be towards the back because that's a lot of where the nonsense is happening. Like I mentioned before, there's just a lot of rubber banding here. And so right now I'm sitting about 15 wheels so that I'm sitting comfortable in the drive, but if a breakaway does happen to go up the road, I'll still be far enough in the front where I can see it, catch it, and hopefully bridge the gap if that actually does go down. All right, pay attention to the guy in this green, sort of kiwi colored green jersey. So as you can see, he's kind of all over the place. Look at his pedaling style. Now this is a sprinting segment and this guy decides to start super tucking. Now look how fast we're going. Now we're all sprinting here, right? And so I don't know this guy personally, but I just thought it was hilarious that he decided to super tuck at that point in the course. We weren't even descending down a mountain or even a small hill, so I just think it's even more funny that he decided to do that right there and then. But hey, that's what you come to expect when you have 70 people all riding together on a group ride. All right, and the final notable section within the group ride is what we call here locally the Bahi Temple Leadout and the Bahi Temple Sprint. And so the Bahi Temple is a place of worship here just north outside of the city, and it's used as a landmark of where the sprinting segment ends. So what you'll see leading up to that is you'll see several teams and several small groups sort of performing a lead out train for the sprinter or whoever has good legs that day, where they're going to start leading out their guy to hit the sprint as fast as possible. And this is probably one of the most notorious or just the most popular sprinting segment here within the north side of Chicago. It can get sketchy at times because you do have to kind of chase between the traffic lights and stuff. And so everything has to kind of line up perfectly. So in this case, as you guys can see, the light was red, but with 70 people, I mean, there's no way everyone's going to be able to brake. I mean, especially at these speeds. And so as you guys saw earlier, we're going 4 abreast. Now, again, we're all staying within the yellow line, so it's pretty safe, and especially at these speeds. Normally we're 2 abreast, but as you guys can see, everyone is trying to sort of jockey for position. And so if you've made it this far within the group ride, that usually means that you've done pretty good. And for myself, I wasn't trying to go for a full-on sprint. I was just trying to hold my position. A quick side note, I do want to apologize for the shaky video. What I've noticed is with the GoPro 9, especially as the sun begins to set and the ambient is a little bit lower, there's a lot more camera shake, something that doesn't happen when it's the middle of the day. So I just want to apologize for the footage. But nonetheless, guys, this is where everyone really starts to save their energy. If they haven't done any of the other previous sprinting segments up to this point, this is where everyone starts to really put the hammer down. So you can just imagine 70 people here. Look at this, we're 4 abreast. It's chaos here. Everyone is trying to figure out where they want to be. And when you're in a group this size, if you are going to go for the Bahi Temple sprint, aka the finish line, you have to be like at least 8th, 9th, maybe even 10th wheel to get position. So with a group of 70 people, if you're towards the back, there's not going to be any way to safely move up wheels. At that point, it's basically too late here. And so at this point, there's probably maybe 2 or 3 guys already up the road. And so I was here just kind of hanging out, just trying to stay safe. Chicago roads, as I've mentioned, are just really crappy. And so when you're going these speeds, you just have to really hold your line, really focus, and just try to make your way towards the end of the sprint. I do have to say that cycling is just so awesome. As much as I love basketball, I've been playing basketball for 20 years, there's just no feeling similar to the sort of excitement and adrenaline that cycling brings me here. And I'm impressed with where my fitness has gone. I'm so happy to be a part of my local team, to be able to sort of leave my imprint and stuff. And even during this particular segment, I actually PR'd because we were just going so fast. And if you would have asked me a couple months ago, would I be able to be anywhere near the front during this segment, I would have laughed at you because there would have been absolutely no way. So I'm just happy that I'm sitting here chilling mid-pack, sort of surfing wheels, but most importantly, I'm not being spit out the back of the group. And we finally made it to the best part of the ride, which is the pizza and beer at 7-Eleven, like I mentioned earlier. So this is where everyone kind of gets to regroup. You get to talk about how the ride went. You get to talk about your family, talk about your friends, and just catch up with all the people that you probably wouldn't be able to do so if you weren't on this group ride.
And as always, if you have any questions, comments, or concerns, please feel free to leave them down below. I will check you guys on the next one. Thanks for watching. Peace.